In episode 1 of my first impressions series for the show, I stated that I did not like this OP as much as I liked season 1's OP, which I will henceforth refer to as OP1. My reasoning boiled down to its ability to present to the audience what the show was about. I believed that OP1 did a much better job displaying the rivalry aspect of their relationship and therefore was the superior OP. However, there was one thing that I had failed to realise, one important detail that once discovered would completely alter the way I saw the second season's OP. We then get a shot of Takagi with her back to the camera. The three things worth taking from this shot are that she is seemingly the one blowing these bubbles, that she has some green splotches behind her, and most importantly, that she is alone. We then get a shot of Nishikata with pink splotches on his background and also standing alone. For the sake of this analysis, you'll want to make a mental note that Takagi's colour is green and Nishikata's colour is pink. We then get a shot of both of them standing back to back with a wide gap between them. Notice how their colours still dominate their respective sides of the screen, but towards the middle they are starting to overlap. We get a quick close-up of the both of them before panning up to the title of the show, with two bubbles floating by to reveal the two. While the wide shot will eventually have significance to the overall point the OP is making, the close-ups appear to be more interested in introducing viewers to the main characters. We then get introduced to our side characters. We see Mina, Sane and Yukari on the road where Nishikata found the arcade token in day duty. We then see Nakai, Mano, Hojo and Hamaguchi. These characters are standing in front of the snack shop that returning viewers will recognise from Tailing. Lastly, in front of the school we see Tanabe, Ponytail Girl, Takeo, Kimura and that one kid from Critical Hit. All of these shots have a continuous animation of Takagi and Nishikata walking together, where it appears that Nishikata tries to tease Takagi but has the tables turned on him. We then get a quick shot containing 5 separate images. Reading these images like a manga, we start with the cup ramen that Nishikata and Takagi eat in episode 6, Date. Going left, we see the snowman that Takagi built in the manga chapter 62, Snowman, which does not get adapted in this season. We then see a paper dog coming out of a paper box, clearly combining Takagi and Nishikata's Jack-in-the-Box designs from Eraser back in season 1. We then get an eraser and a mechanical pencil. I can't quite pin down what this is a reference to, but it's probably another Eraser reference. Then we finally get to a Kendama based on the manga chapter 65, Kendama, another story that has not been adapted into anime. We then get a sudden flash of white fluff with glitter throughout it. As pointed out by Reddit user Rymation YouTube, this is a reference to episode 9, Worries. We then get a shot of Takagi's eraser bouncing around. Now this shot comes up during an interesting set of lyrics. Subs, who translated every episode of the show, translates the lyrics during this shot to "As the eraser of my prayers wears out." If you recall, Takagi has Nishikata's name written on her eraser, and she believes that when that eraser is used up, he will fall in love with her. I will go into the significance of this near the end of the video. We then see Nishikata, Takagi, Sane, Yukari and Mina all petting some cats, likely referencing cat and dubbing from the first season, and buy and eat from this season. When the cat leaps onto Nishikata and Takagi giggles at him, you can see Yukari sneak a peek while her friends stay focused on the cats. This shot tells us a little about how this show operates, namely how it spends part of its time focused on the side trio. It also references the interest that Yukari takes in their potential relationship. We then get another shot of various objects. Going manga style again, we start with a small bar of chocolate that references episode 2, Valentine's Day. We see a Daifuku, which references manga chapter 54, Daifuku, which also doesn't get adapted in this season. In the middle we see eye drops, referencing episode 10, Eye Drops. Bottom right we see a frog, which is potentially a reference to Umbrella, which was adapted last season. And finally, a can of melon soda to reference episode 4, Bitter Taste. We then see Takagi's handkerchief being flicked across the screen. Likely there is a promise to returning viewers that the progression from last season is still intact here. This is a promise that they live up to. We then see what appears to be a line of coloured pencils, which create a gradient from Nishikata's pink to Takagi's green. We then see Takagi and Nishikata back to back looking straight up as it seemingly rains around them. Takagi seems happy and like she is enjoying this, while Nishikata looks up curiously. We then get some more close-ups of the two main characters. Nishikata is looking away with a slightly flushed face, whereas Takagi peeks at him over her shoulder. This clues new viewers into the dynamic between these two, that Nishikata is often flustered around Takagi and that Takagi understands this. We then reached the climax of the OP, and for the record, I was under the impression that these were animated versions of some of the manga's title cards. This cowboy one is definitely a clear reference to Questions, but besides that, I cannot find any of the other images depicted in this montage, even though I am certain I have seen some of them before. But assuming that I am wrong and I'm just streaming all this up, there is a slight subtext to these images. Notice in the first one that when Nishikata catches Takagi and pulls her up, she looks nervous to be this close. This is potentially a reference to Takagi's one true weakness, intimacy and affection, as shown by Room and Critical Hit. However, by the end of this montage, she is being held by Nishikata and not looking nervous at all, likely hinting at the progression that Takagi will see over the course of this season. We then get a short scene where Nishikata is sitting on a bench sleeping, and Takagi sneaks up behind him. As pointed out by Reddit user 2K55, she writes the katakana symbol for Su, which is likely short for Suki or Sukidayo, which is Japanese for like. She whispers in his ear, and he is jolted awake. This is the only moment in OP2 where we see Takagi tease Nishikata, which is why I initially said I didn't like it as much as OP1. However, like I said back in the beginning, I was missing a crucial piece of understanding about this show that would completely shift the way I thought about this OP. Remember why I said that the handkerchief represents a promise? That the character progression will be kept intact for this season? Well, the eraser gives us a hint as to what comes next. The first season was all about getting Nishikata to a point where he wanted to be around Takagi. Stories like Two Choice Question and Invitation set him up to come to terms with this, and Seating Arrangement is where he finally acts on these feelings. Now that he is there, Takagi can move on to the next phase of her plan, becoming a couple. Remember how the lyrics of the song when the eraser shows up roughly translate to "as the eraser of my prayers runs out." This means that Takagi is getting closer and closer to using up that eraser. The eraser of course being a metaphor for a countdown to when Nishikata will be in a place where he can enter a romantic relationship. This is also somewhat displayed in the colour scheme. As the OP goes on, the colours become more and more mixed together as Takagi and Nishikata's lives become more and more entwined. The ultimate goal being to completely bridge the gap between these colours, like that line of pencils did with its gradient. Just as the colours tell a story, so too does the distance between the characters. At the beginning they stand far apart, but by the end they are right next to each other. They are closing the gap, getting it closer to 0 centimeters. So what did I initially miss about this OP that made me like it less? Well, it boils down to the show's intention. Believe it or not, the core premise of this show is not a middle schooler who wants revenge on the girl who was always teasing him. If this was the case, the series would have ended with Critical Hit and we would have all been satisfied with that. But it doesn't. It ends with Seating Arrangement, a story where the boy realizes he does enjoy spending time with the girl. The core premise of the show is two middle schoolers who are in love with each other but aren't emotionally mature enough to be together yet. This season's OP, its visual references and song lyrics perfectly convey this core premise to the audience. The second season has laser focused onto this point, and proving that will be the thesis of this entire analysis series. That's right, this show has upped its game, and so too shall I. No more meandering around and trying to hastily put the pieces together. The analysis series will be carefully constructed around the core idea that the story is about these two falling in love with each other, growing as people to accommodate a relationship of that kind, and occasionally branching off into the show's sub-themes and ideas. And I hope that you will join me on this journey to connect all the dots throughout the series. And that is it for this analysis. I've missed doing this big time. If you want to support my channel, you can do so via Patreon. If you would like to see the outtake reel for this video, you can find it on my website, link in the description. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.